Let's look at the forward line now. We've got some left wingers and some strikers to talk about. First one we're going to talk about is Jota, obviously formerly of Celtic, now of Al Ittihad in Saudi, a player that obviously Ange Postecoglou knows really well, fit the system like a glove. He was a top performer for Ange Postecoglou out in Celtic, 24 years of age, 9 million market value, which I actually think we could get him for a decent fee. He's just not registered even for Al Ittihad, so he's a player that is very likely that we could sign for a decent fee in January, and probably a high quality one as well.
Yeah, obviously for one reason or another hasn't worked out at all out in Saudi for him, and he's not even in the squad for the domestic games. He can only be involved in their Champions League games, so clearly he must be desperate to get out of there. When it comes to his attributes, obviously performs quite well, but obviously this is in the Champions League I'm looking at for Celtic, so not in the Scottish League. And look, performs really well for take-ons, good dribbling ability, and to do that in the Champions League is not easy. Progressive carries is good, shots total is good, shot creating actions is good. So I think when it comes to wingers that Ange likes, he likes players who are good at take-ons, maybe good at creating chances as well. Carries into the final third, pretty strong at that. Progressive carries, he's strong at that. I'm trying to look at crosses, see if I can find the metric for crosses. Shot creating actions, 94th percentile in the Champions League. But then again, that's only based on 285 minutes. So how many games is that? 120 minutes is 2 games. So what, 4 games? So 6 games. That's the group stage. They got knocked out the group stage. Shots is pretty good. Passing's good. I don't see crosses into the penalty area. There you go. 2.21, 99th percentile. I mean, all the metrics you want, he's good at from a winger. So I would say definitely it's worth taking a punt on, especially if it's a very cheap deal. And obviously, as you say, Ange knows him. Good, he's a young winger as well. Position that we need, and the performance was strong at the metrics.
There's question mark with Jota over his physicality and if he can do it week in, week out in a very physical league, which is the Premier League, which is something to consider. Obviously, he did perform in Celtic. I mean, look, Scotland in its own right is a very physical league, isn't it? The SPL. But I think when you're comparing it to the Premier League, it's just a bit of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, but this is Champions League I was comparing it to. So these metrics, if he can perform well in the Champions League, there's no reason to say he can't do it in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well. Who did Celtic have in their group? I know Real Madrid were one of the teams, I think.
I wouldn't be able to tell you who they had last season. Yeah, I do remember they had Real Madrid. I do think they lost all 6 group games.
They didn't have a good time of it in the Champions League, but I do remember the one game against Real Madrid, like they absolutely carved Real Madrid open time and time again. They just weren't clinical enough. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So I think maybe losing all 6 games doesn't actually tell the whole story, but they were the weakest team in that group.
But anyway, regardless of that, to play in a team who lost all 6 games and, perform quite well on these metrics is still quite impressive.
Yeah, true. But that kind of does play into what I was saying as well about how they kind of tore Real Madrid apart but just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, and he was probably a key part of that as well.
Yeah, key passes as well. Look at that, 96th percentile. I think the metrics are strong.
Next up, we're going to talk about Samuel Illing Jr. of Juventus, another one from the Don Paratici repertoire. 20 years of age, 9 million market value, obviously at Juventus. He was seeing a lot more minutes last season as opposed to this season, which I'm not sure what that reasoning was, but he's another player that will fit the homegrown quota, an English boy playing out in Italy, which you don't see quite often. We've spoken about him quite a lot on this channel, and I think that he is an exciting player, but it does, I mean, I was about to say I have question marks on him because he doesn't play too much for Juventus, but then again, when we signed Kulusevski, he wasn't playing too much for Juventus at the time.
Yeah, I'd say it's different because he's, if you look at his overall appearances, him and Bentancur still made a lot of appearances for them. Just when at the time we signed them, they weren't in the team. This guy, Illing Jr., has made 18 total appearances. Look, but he's only 19. So he's very young. You don't expect a player of that age to be, racking up loads of appearances.
Maybe it's impressive playing that many appearances at 19 years of age.
It makes sense that he's 19 and he's not going to be playing week in, week out at that age. It takes a real special talent or to be very special at that age to be playing week in, week out. It's not often, when you think about players at that age playing week in, week out, like, remember Dele Alli broke into the Spurs team at 19, but it's a very rare thing to be at that age playing week in, week out. But in terms of the metrics he's got, when it comes to the stats, what I'm looking at, look, this is only based off 587 minutes, and in fact, it's only comparing it to fullbacks. I'm guessing maybe he's playing wing back for them. I don't know.
We'll have a look.
Because it's only it's not comparing it to wingers. It's comparing it to fullbacks. So I have to assume he's only been maybe he's playing wing back a few times. I don't know, but he performs very well. But this is very well compared to fullbacks, not wingers. So it's hard to really judge, I would say, in terms of how well he actually performs in these metrics.
I'm just looking at it now. In terms of the 6 appearances he's had this season, he's actually played 1 game at central midfield, 1 game as a left winger, and 3 games as a left midfielder.
That sounds like a wing back. Maybe
could be a wing back, but they usually say wing back if it's a wing back. I don't know. This is interesting.
Obviously, it's a small sample size regardless because there's not that many games. I don't know if did he start all those games
last season was all over on the left. Last season he didn't start. He started like 1 of them, maybe 2. This season I don't think he started a game. No.
Okay, so we're off the bench. So I think these metrics you can't really read too much into it because there's not much to go on when it comes to his game playing time. But definitely what I can see is good dribbling ability. He has ability to get into the final third. But look, a 19-year-old playing playing amount of games for Juventus is still good. He seems versatile as well. Is he a player who's going to come in and make an instant impact in the first team? I don't know. It's hard to say, to be honest. Bit of a risk, but definitely a player who we know can play at this level because he's showing it, and a versatile player. So I'm not against it, but it's nothing I can see right now suggest to me this is a must-have. But maybe they've scouted him and decided this guy, if we get him now, we're getting him ahead of the game.
A few months ago, 2 months ago, he played for England under-21s and he came on as a left back.
Okay.
So that's interesting. It seems like a very versatile player. So that is Samuel Illing Jr. Next up, we're going to look at Antonio Nusa of Club Bruges. 18-year-old, 17 million market value, playing obviously in the Belgian league for Club Bruges. Club Bruges not exactly having the best season out in Belgium, but he's definitely been a shining light for them. And at 18 years of age, yes, it's not the strongest league in the world, but the attributes that he's showing, you could be getting someone before they absolutely blow up. Obviously, me myself were very excited about someone like Gift Orban coming from Belgium in the summer. He hasn't really kicked on this season as opposed to what he did last season.
What's his name? Buchanan. Was he?
Tajon Buchanan as well. He plays for Bruges. Yeah, you're right about that. But Antonio Nusa could be a bit of a different one, but he's a very quick, pacey winger who does seem to have quality about him.
Yeah, and in fact, he scored 3 goals in the Norwegian league when he was 15 in the first division. So
wow.
that goes to show probably how quickly he's come onto the scene. Very quickly joined Bruges this season, as you say, 2 goals, 2 assists at 18 years of age in 12 appearances. The metrics are very promising. Extremely good at dribbling. Very good at carrying. Definitely gets in shot creating actions. Gets his shots in. So as a winger, very promising. This is off 12 period, 920 minutes. So based off that, it's quite a lot of minutes as well. Obviously, it is in the Belgian league, but 18, still all of this is very, very impressive. When it comes to crossing, key passes and things like that, I'm trying to look how well he performs. So, yeah, very key passes is above average. Crosses is above average as well, but it's not outstanding. But yeah, dribbling, getting in shooting positions, shot creating actions, all the very, very top. So to do that 18 is very impressive. Even if he's in the Belgian league, it's still impressive to do that.
You know what? This could be a really good idea, signing someone of this age, because you've obviously got Heung-min Son, who's a left winger. And if we are going to keep him on the left wing, he's someone that can maybe come under Heung-min Son's wing, and he can really nurture him and give him all those advices, especially as he's the captain as well, and bleed him into the team as time goes on, and even get some minutes in Europe next season, or in the cup games next season, or even in the FA Cup this season if we do go and look to bring him in January. I think this could be a smart addition. Yeah,
I agree. I think we have to be looking to the future, so I don't disagree. I think having someone like an 18-year-old like Nusa, blooding him in, not having that constant expectation to start every game, could definitely be, and someone maybe coming on against tired legs late in games as well, I think could very much be a interesting prospect.
And when you're looking at the likes of who we have there with like Brian Hill, it doesn't seem to be working out for Brian Hill at Spurs, to say the least. So if we could get some money in for Brian Hill and replace him for someone like him, I think that would be a great addition.
Yeah, I'm definitely willing to give that a go.
Next up, these two players now we're going to talk about next is two players I massively rate, and what I've seen from both of them this season, especially in the Champions League, I've been super impressed. The first player we're going to talk about is Galatasaray's Kerem Aktoglu, 25 years of age, 17 million market value. Obviously, like I said, at Galatasaray, he's a player exactly that tore Man United to shreds, to be honest, in both the games. I've seen him in the majority of games that Galatasaray play in the Champions League, and he's been an absolute standout performer. I think he actually started one of the games against Man United on the bench, but came on and absolutely ripped them to shreds. Scored the goal. He looks like a player of supreme quality. At 25 years of age, though, he's not exactly a spring chicken.
Yeah, I do. Isn't he also can play number 10 as well, can play second striker. He's I wouldn't say he's a classic Postecoglou winger from what I can see. He's not a winger who's, constantly taking people on, that kind of thing with pace. I would say if he was to play for us, he would probably be more of a central player than a winger, although he does play out wide for Galatasaray. Looking at the metrics from him in the Champions League this season, definitely doesn't seem like a player who's got the right attributes for what we want. Does do a lot of crosses, but when it comes to take-ons and that kind of stuff, doesn't perform very well. Passes fairly low as well. Definitely decent when it comes to shots and things like that, but definitely has more of a profile for more of a central player than a real winger that we like in Postecoglou's system, I would say.
And I guess, like, in terms of a central player or a winger that we want to turn into a central player, we do have Kulusevski there. Is there a desperate need for someone like that has the attributes more centrally than out wide?
Probably not. And considering he's 25 as well.
But he is a top player. I love watching him play. I really do. I thought he was a shining light for Galatasaray this year in the Champions League.
Yeah, I do. I think he's played really well. I just think it depends what we want. If we're looking for a winger, I just don't see him being the guy, to be honest.
Does that maybe he hasn't shown it for Galatasaray because of the way they play? Is it?
I just don't think he's that kind of player. He's just not that. He's not the player that we're like in terms of a winger. How Ange likes his wingers. He's not that kind of player. He's a different kind of. Like when he's playing on the wing, he's more of like a Jack Grealish kind of winger, if you know what I mean. Someone who likes the ball to feet, likes to pass or move kind of thing. I think Ange likes direct wingers, take on their man, cause problems in that way with pace. He's just not that kind of player.
Well, if you want to talk about direct, let's go on to the next man, because he has also been an absolutely shining light this season in League and Champions League for PSV Eindhoven, and it's Johan Bakayoko. We have been linked with him in the past. 20 years of age, 40 million euro market value. I mean, I just think he looks like dynamite. I was watching him against Arsenal in the Champions League in the group phase, and I thought he looked incredible. Absolutely incredible. One-on-one take-ons, shooting ability, crossing ability. I feel like he's got it all. Yeah. I
was just looking at his metrics, and when you look at his domestic metrics, it's obviously like incredible, like 99th percentile and everything. It's amazing. But when I do look at it in the Champions League, it's not as strong. It's strong, to be fair, but it's not as strong as in the Eredivisie. So I think that goes to show he's maybe not at that level where it's as easy for him in the Champions League as it is in the Eredivisie. I think maybe Eredivisie is too easy for him potentially at this point, albeit his goal contributions this season, 3 goals, 8 assists in 16 games, but he is 20 years of age. So I think to be getting that guy kind of goal output at such a young age is very, very impressive. But I'm looking at the metrics in the Champions League. Take-ons, very good. Carries, very good. Shot-creating actions, very good. These are the kind of attributes to me that tell me he's definitely more of a fit for Postecoglou's system, playing on that left-hand side. Or the right-hand side. I do believe he's left-footed. So he can. I do think he predominantly plays on the right, but I think he can be coached to play on the left as well. He does like to be more of a cutting kind of player. But when it comes to let me see, crosses in the box, so progressive carries, progressive passes received, all that kind of stuff, very good. Take-ons, very strong. So even though it's in the Champions League, his take-on percentage is very good. Key passes, 89th percentile. Crosses in the box, 96th percentile. So I'm looking at those stats, and that's very much the attributes you want for a winger under Postecoglou.
Yeah, I mean, the eye test back all those things up as well, because every time I've seen him play, he just looks such a danger. Even in the Champions League, was getting consistent shot on targets, and he gave Arsenal real problems in both the games, to be honest. And I actually think out of all those wingers, I think I would favour him at the top, to be honest.
He nearly signed for Burnley, even in the summer. Burnley were heavily looking at him, which goes to show maybe the level of it. Well, there was a lot of interest from him in the summer. Spurs were linked with him. I can't remember who else was. A lot of teams. And then Burnley nearly stole him right at the end. Maybe they're the only team that are actually willing to put the money on the table. But I think once you've seen him in the Champions League this season, that surely allayed some fears for people that whether he's ready at this level, because he looked great.
He really did look great. In terms of the wingers, I put him absolutely at the top of the list. I think he's a player that can play on both wings, one-on-one demon. He has attributes that maybe a lot of our wingers don't have at the moment and that we need. So I would put him top. Would you agree, or would you put someone else at the top?
Yeah, I'd put him top. I think he's
Nusa, Illing Jr. and Jota.
I'll probably put Bakayoko top, probably Jota second,
then Nusa
third,
Illing Jr. Actacoglu.
Yeah, based on attributes wise, from what I'm seeing, I think that's what I'll do.
And then to finish this off, we've only got just 2 strikers to talk about. First one is going to be the name on everyone's lips at the moment, and that is Santiago Jimenez of Feyenoord, 22 years of age, 50 million market value. This guy is having a season from heaven at the moment, literally. 18 goals and 16 appearances in the Eredivisie, 4 assists. In the Champions League, 4 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. I mean, he's having a stunning season at that age as well. You're looking at a player who has supreme ability and a high ceiling. So if we can get him in, that would be a massive coup for the club.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen and watched him in a few Champions League games, and he really looks like he's playing the part. He doesn't just lead the line and run in behind and score goals. He likes to get involved in the play as well. He's really good at hold up play, and he's actually quite kind of a bit of a hub of the team. A bit like how we were treating Harry Kane back, last season or a couple of seasons, when he's just like everything goes through him. That's how Feyenoord go through Jimenez at the moment. He's playing so well. If you obviously his metrics really in the Champions League really high in terms of the goal scoring, outperforms his XG. As you say, like 2 goals, 1 assist as well in the Champions League for a final team. Obviously, aren't going to be one of the favourites, but when it comes to his passing ability as well, a decent amount of assists. His shots on goal was really high, and he's a tall striker as well. He's 5'11", fairly tall. Maybe he could bulk up a bit in terms of physicality. Only 132 pounds, 59 kilograms, which for a lot of others, but maybe that's what gives him his edge when it comes to maybe a bit of pace. Maybe that helps.
He's very nimble on his feet.
He is very nimble. Could he struggle with the physicality of the Premier League? There's definitely a question mark on that, but definitely from what I'm seeing, I really like what I'm seeing from Jimenez so far from when I've seen him in the Champions League. Performed really well.
Those numbers in the Eredivisie is just insane, isn't it? 18 goals, 16 appearances. Just insane. But again, like, he's obviously got a lot of interest in him at the moment. He'll probably command quite a big fee, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would definitely. The only question mark is he going through a bit of a hot streak? But then again, last season, 32 games, 15 goals as well. So it's not exactly like he wasn't performing last season. This season, he's really exploded. So this is a guy definitely who's breaking out at the moment. So it's definitely one where we have to consider whether we're getting him at the right time, or is it just someone going for a hot streak? And if we, you want to be wary of paying a lot of money, because a lot of people calling for Orban. Are people calling for him again? Still, probably not. So you got to be wary of a lot of these strikers sometimes. But yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the last player that we are going to talk about, and you talk about hot streaks, this guy might be the epitome of hot streaks, and it's Sergio Guirassy of Stuttgart, 27 years of age, 40 million euro market value, which has just shot up this season, when last season his market value was 14 million, which is absolutely crazy. He scored 16 goals in 13 appearances for Stuttgart this season, but he's never, ever in his career seen anything like these kind of stats before. So when you're talking about hot streak at 27 years of age, maybe he is just a late bloomer, but it does more suggest to me that this is a bit of a hot streak.
Yeah, I definitely would be wary about splashing big money on a player who's 27.
He's got a very low release clause, like 17 million or something.
Okay,
13 million.
It could be worth taking a punt on that, I guess, if in terms of that kind of price range. So the stats do seem to suggest he's playing very well at the moment. It's not just a hot streak, and that he's very high for shot creating actions. He's not massively outperforming his XG as well, with non-penalty goals still 99th percentile. Shots is high. Passing, it seems quite a lot. He attempts a lot of passes for a striker, which is very encouraging for someone who's involved in build-up play.
They play, I think Stuttgart play more of like a 4-4-2 system, and up front he plays with Undav, and they've got quite a good relationship there.
Okay, so I guess that might be different to playing maybe a bit of a lone striker role, which you would at Tottenham. Touch in the penalty area is very, very high. Take-on's not so high when it comes to having the ball to his feet, but that doesn't necessarily mean too much. You don't have to take people on in our system as a striker. So the stats definitely bear out when it comes to him. Obviously, he's in a massive scoring streak at the moment. So definitely, maybe there is one to take a pound on. Key passes in the 89th percentile as well in the Bundesliga. It's just, you got to be, I don't know, it's just strange that he's only now exploding at 27 when he's had a whole career behind him. I don't know what's changed for him. But the numbers, if I'm looking at these numbers in terms of the attributes, shot creating actions is really high as well. So definitely seems like a striker who's not just scoring goals, but also getting involved in the general play for his team as well. Albeit he's only got 1 assist, but his expected assists is 3. So it should be that 1 assist maybe doesn't represent his overall game.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't. It's just a risk, isn't it, Guirassy, at 27 years of age, to bring him in when you can go for a Santiago Jimenez. I know Jimenez will be like probably triple what he'll cost, maybe even quadruple. But
in a weird way, though, Jimenez is younger, right? But the numbers in terms of the attributes, Guirassy's stronger at.
Yeah, but he is 7 years older, or 6 years older.
He's 5 years older. He's
5
years older, yeah. So obviously so you're paying for Jimenez, you're paying for maybe a player with a potential higher ceiling, a lot more room to grow, whereas Guirassy, this is probably him at his absolute peak, and this is the best it's going to get for him. But as a striker who's maybe more ready now in terms of what I'm seeing in the attributes, maybe Guirassy would be the better option, interestingly enough. But I think most people would probably rather Jimenez through the door.
Yeah, I would rather Jimenez, to be honest. There's actually one more player that I want to look at, because a lot of people in the comments keep mentioning him, so I thought we may as well look at him. And he goes by the name of Dusan Vlahovic of Juventus. 23 years of age. It feels like he should be a lot older, because he seems like he's been around forever.
Seems like he's been around for a while.
Tall Juventus striker. Hasn't really happened for him at Juventus, has it? After that amazing period he had at Fiorentina. For Serbia as well, they always seem to favour Mitrovic over Vlahovic, albeit Vlahovic still gets lots of minutes for them. His contract's up in 2026. He's got a market value of 70 million euros. I just can't see Spurs ever pushing the button on someone like that. especially as he seems to have had some sort of dip in his career at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, 22 goals overall in 56 games for Juventus. Not a horrific goal scoring record, but when they spent the money they spent on him, he thought he was gonna, maybe have like don't know whoever the top strikers numbers. It's not terrible, but it's not like maybe what they expected because of how he was firing them in for Fiorentina. The metrics don't really look great for him. But if I'm comparing the metrics, maybe when he was at Fiorentina, maybe that'll give us a better indication of his true nature. But then again, maybe Juve is more of a better indication of his actual level than the Fiorentina time. But if I'm looking at his time at Fiorentina, if I'm looking at the metrics there,
him at Fiorentina was an absolute beast.
Yeah,
he was an absolute beast.
A lot better at Fiorentina than they are now. But he seems to be a player playing without confidence as well. He seems to Allegri doesn't always fancy him. The Juventus fans haven't really taken to him. Definitely a player who's got a bit of a confidence issue. Definitely, he's definitely a bit of a target man. Good, really sweet left foot. Good, decent hold up play. Do you reckon? I do think he could do a good job, but I don't know how much we're going to actually have to spend to buy him.
I reckon he is like someone that Ange could bring back on form, but it's a massive risk for a massive layout. Yeah,
if they're looking to recoup their money, I just don't see the point in spending that amount on him.
And there are so many other players like that player out in Lisbon at the moment. I was watching it last night. Lisbon against Porto. Oh my God, this guy looked insane in that game as well. Sporting Lisbon at home to Porto, where Porto have usually had the better of those ties. He fired Lisbon top of the league last night, scoring a goal, and he had one that was ruled out as well. I can't remember his name.
Gyökeres.
He looks insane.
Oh, look at that. These metrics are great.
He looks absolutely insane. He was in the Championship last season, wasn't he, for like Coventry?
Yeah. 10 goals, 5 assists in 13 games in the Portuguese league this season. Gyökeres.
He looks like a serious player, but he's only just signed for them last summer. So he hasn't been there for that long.
Yeah, I can't see us signing him in January, but this guy seems to be performing extremely well. He's doing so well for Lisbon at the moment, for Sporting, sorry.
Yeah.
So definitely, I can't see him leaving after 6 months, but definitely.
Maybe something for the future to keep an eye on, because he seems like a top talent.
I mean, he was in the Championship. He smashed out in the Championship.
Yeah, he did. Didn't he finish top goal scorer in the Championship last year? Oh, no, not top goal scorer.
21 and 10 assists. And the season before that, 17 goals, 5 assists. So last 3 seasons, been performing really well. But he is 25 now. Getting into his peak. Tall striker, 6'1" as well. Maybe it's one just to keep an eye on. I don't know if it's one we're going to be going for. Maybe in the summer.
Someone in the comments says he's got a €65 million release clause.
Right. Is that something we're going to activate in January?
Probably not.
I don't see that.
Seeing as there's not much money available, apparently.
Maybe Kulu can tell us about him.
Yeah, maybe. But look, I think we'll call it there. A lot of players looked at. Hopefully you found this episode quite informative.